Over the past 5 years or so, we've developed a no-dig system, and we've been really amazed at how the soil has improved. So we're not using any fertilizers and we're hardly irrigating at all, only to establish plants in those first few weeks. What people don't know about Westdean is that we're principally an arts, design and conservation college. So not only are we a garden that people can come and visit, but we've got loads of students and artists that are mingling with our garden visitors, all taking inspiration from the space. Hi, my name's Tom Brown. I'm the head gardener here at Westdean, which is in West Sussex, and we're really proud to be part of the Gardener's World magazine 2-for-1 scheme. We've got a huge range of horticulture here, everything from Victorian greenhouses to a huge kitchen garden and loads of experimenting with drought-tolerant planting. So come with me and I'd love to show you around. One of the most amazing things about managing a garden like Westdean is the transition that it goes on through the years. And what I've been really fascinated by is taking something like the type of horticulture that Westdean's really well known for, like this Victorian horticulture with growing dahlias and growing lots of vegetables, but making it really relevant as we go forward. So looking at using a lot of peat-free composts, not using any chemicals and working with the extremes of weather really gets me out of bed in the morning as a head gardener to come and see all the things that we can experiment with and do. So we're in one of the Victorian greenhouses here at Westdean, and they're really special to me because when I was here during lockdown, we had to preserve these really precious collections because some of these plants are decades old and they aren't easily replaced. So getting to know them and then producing this seasonal display as we do in this house. And the idea is that the plants that we put in here throughout the year are at their peak and they really deliver lots of flower and pack a punch in this firework-like display. And here we've got begonias, coleus and foliage plants. So you'll sort of hit left, right and centre as you walk up and down this glass house. And when they come towards the end of their life, we take them out, store them over the winter, and then another group comes in to take centre stage. So we've got 13 large Victorian greenhouses here at Westdean, and within those 13 houses we've got 26 different compartments, and we try to make them distinctly different from each other. So that might mean that we've got ferns and orchids in one and contrast that with cactus in another, or kiwis, figs, peaches or chilies in the others. And here we are in the tropical house at the moment. So here we are in the kitchen garden, which is a walled space which makes it perfect for growing fruit and vegetables because of the protection that that wall provides. We've got loads of wall-trained fruit, particularly on the south-facing wall there where fruit can ripen really quickly and tends to ripen that little bit earlier. We're not purely looking at fruit and veg in this space. I'm standing in one of the herbaceous borders here, which has got lots of perennials, and we've moved away from using a lot of annuals to give us a more sustainable planting, but it also gives us that more naturalistic, easygoing feel. The kitchen garden at Westdean is really unique because we try to grow as many different vegetables in this space as we can. So a little bit of everything, and that includes sweet potatoes right the way through to radishes. So what's really exciting about working at Westdean at the moment is acknowledging that Victorian heritage where we were pulling lots of horticultural levers, in some ways exercising a lot of control over the plants that we grow. But moving forward, we respect that heritage, but we are gardening in a much more environmentally friendly and sustainable way. So we're here in the sunken garden, and this part of the garden used to be full of roses, alpines, and surrounded by a box hedge. Over the years, with different pests and diseases and climate extremes, we noticed that planting was deteriorating year on year, to the point where we had to make some changes. We're realizing that drought-tolerant plants aren't necessarily the answer to all of our problems, because they very rarely can cope with those very wet winters. So we're looking for a community of plants that will cope with extremes of weather rather than one particular type. So we cleared this site and put 10 centimetres of a locally sourced sandstone. Through that 10 centimetres of sand, we planted a range of perennials and shrubs that are tap-rooted and also designed to cope with extreme drought. And we haven't watered this garden once since we planted it over a year ago. And when a number of other plants around the garden are struggling and showing signs of stress, this place is not only positively thriving, but full of pollinators as well. So this is our dry meadow, and we affectionately call this our pollinator pit stop, because ecologists have described it like that, because all of the pollinating insects come into this very sheltered location, access all these seed-raised plants which have got all their nectar and pollen easily accessible for these insects. They come in, top themselves up, and then are able to fly on to other parts of the garden. This dry meadow was really my first venture into experimenting with plants that would grow in a very low fertile, free draining medium. We wanted to create a resilient planting that could cope with drought and also incredibly wet winters as well. To do that, we were looking at using crushed concrete. So we cleared the site of any planting and perennial weed and put 10 centimetres of recycled crushed concrete from a local recycling centre. Once the concrete was on the ground, we then planted through it, so the top 2/3 of the root ball came into direct contact with the concrete, and the bottom third came into contact with the very rubbery soil below. We watered it once in the March of 2022, and we haven't watered it since. And it's taken on a life of its own. It's moving, it's morphing in all sorts of directions, but because of that sort of character and way in which the garden is constantly changing, it's become a real firm favourite of mine and of the visitors as well. Well, thank you for joining me. You've been great company, and hopefully you'll come and see us throughout the year here at West Dean, and remember to bring your 2-for-1 card.